3 weeks had passed since the UNS Defiance first appeared on the edge of Imperial space, now inside a newly built neutral space station made especially for this event. The treaty signing between Earth and the Galactic Empire was about to begin. Captain Ryan Mitchell stood before a massive viewing window, watching ships from both fleets hold careful positions around the station. The Defiance floated among them, a powerful symbol of everything this moment represented. Dr. Sarah Lynn, Earth's chief diplomat, walked up beside him. "Nervous?" she asked with a small smile. Ryan gave a faint grin. "Terrified, actually. Everything we've worked for, everything humanity has sacrificed, it all comes down to these next few hours." Sarah nodded softly. "We've come a long way since those first contact days. Remember when the Empire's ships appeared over Earth and everyone thought we were about to become slaves?" Ryan exhaled slowly. "I remember. I was a junior officer then, watching from a command bunker, wondering what we could possibly do. We had nothing that could stop them." "Not then," Sarah said. "But we learned. We watched, studied, and built, quietly, carefully, always planning for this day." Ryan nodded as the doors to the conference room opened. Admiral Victoria Caney entered with her team. Over the past few weeks, Ryan had come to respect her deeply. She was smart, practical, and genuinely wanted this treaty to work. Victoria greeted them formally. "Are you ready to make history?" Ryan smiled. "We are. And Admiral, thank you. I know you took a big risk supporting this." Her expression softened. "I did what was right for the Empire. Sometimes that means knowing when the old ways no longer work." Together, they entered the conference room where representatives from both sides were waiting. The atmosphere was formal but calm, a fragile peace built through weeks of negotiation. The treaty document lay on the central table, both as a physical copy and in digital form. Some traditions, it seemed, went beyond species. On the main screen appeared Chairman Gregory Pierce, speaking from the Imperial Council chamber. His voice filled the hall. "Today marks a turning point in galactic history. The Empire has always valued strength and unity. Today we show another kind of strength, the courage to change, to see potential allies instead of future subjects." His image faded and was replaced by Secretary General Maria Santos of the United Nations of Earth. "For 100 years, humanity lived in the shadow of the Galactic Empire," she said. "We learned we grew, not to conquer, but to earn the right to stand as equals. That day has arrived." The ceremony continued with speeches from leaders on both sides. Each spoke about different parts of the treaty: Earth's independence, technology sharing, defense cooperation, trade, and cultural exchange. It was a hard-won agreement, built through long nights and countless compromises. Finally, the moment everyone had waited for arrived. Admiral Caney and Captain Mitchell stepped forward. Ryan lifted the signing pen. It felt heavier than he expected. This was the moment that would define humanity's place in the galaxy for generations. He signed his name firmly. Victoria followed immediately. The room erupted in applause from both sides. Ryan felt an enormous wave of relief. Against all odds, they had done it. Peace had been achieved. Later, after the ceremony ended, Ryan found himself again by the window. This time, Victoria joined him. "When I first saw the Defiance," she said quietly, "I thought it was the end of everything. The Empire had never been challenged like that, never forced to question its own superiority." Ryan turned to her. "And now?" "Now," she said thoughtfully, "I think it might be the beginning of something better. The Empire has been stagnant, living off its past achievements. Maybe we needed someone to remind us that progress never stops." Ryan looked toward the Defiance. "She's beautiful. We named her that for a reason. Not to threaten, but to remind ourselves that humanity will always defy limits, whether they're set by others or by ourselves." Victoria gave a slight smile. "And what about the other 11 battleships? When will those be revealed?" Ryan smiled back. "When they're needed, or when humanity is ready to expand its presence in the galaxy. But understand this, we didn't build them to fight the Empire. We built them because we refused to be victims. That's an important difference." "I understand," Victoria said. "And I respect that. In fact, I have a proposal. There are frontier regions of the Empire that could use extra protection. How would Earth feel about joint patrol missions? A chance for our forces to train together and build trust." Ryan considered it. I'll need to discuss it with my superiors, but it sounds like a good idea. It could help build confidence between our peoples. Exactly, Victoria agreed. The treaty is just words. Real partnership takes time and effort, but I believe we can make it work. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the ships drift through the stars. Two fleets that had nearly gone to war, now beginning to work toward peace. Ryan broke the silence. You know what the best part of all this is? What's that? Victoria asked. There are probably dozens of other species out there watching this, Ryan said. Learning what we learned, that you don't have to accept being controlled. With determination and intelligence, you can shape your own destiny. The Empire just taught them that by signing this treaty. Victoria chuckled. You're not wrong. The Council's already getting requests from other species asking for new terms. You've started something, Captain. Good, Ryan said simply. The galaxy should be a place where species cooperate and compete as equals, not one where a single empire rules over everyone. Maybe that's the true legacy of the Defiance, not as a weapon, but as a symbol of change. As Ryan prepared to return to his ship, he took one last look at the station where history had been made. The treaty was signed, but the real challenge was just beginning, building trust between former enemies. It would take years, maybe decades, but for the first time he truly felt hopeful. Humanity had spent a century planning, learning, and building in secret, all for this moment. Now that peace was real, who knew what they might achieve next? The galaxy was vast, full of dangers and possibilities. With the Empire as a partner instead of an overlord, humanity could finally take its rightful place among the stars, not as conquered subjects, but as free people choosing their own future. The UNS Defiance hung in space, her weapons powered down but her presence undeniable. She was no longer a secret or a warning. She was proof of what humanity could become when pushed to their limits and beyond. Across dozens of Imperial worlds, other species looked to humanity's triumph and began to dream. They dreamed of their own defiance, their own chance for freedom and equality. The Empire had feared a human battleship. What they didn't realize was that the Defiance was never just a ship. It was the beginning of a revolution. The Imperial Council chamber was a vast hall, where decisions affecting trillions were made. Today, tension filled the air as 7 council members argued about the future of the galaxy. Admiral Victoria Caney stood before them, summoned to explain the situation in person. Above the council table, a hologram of the UNS Defiance rotated slowly, a silent reminder of why they were there. Chairman Gregory Pierce spoke first, barely containing his anger. How, he demanded, did a species we classified as barely capable of space travel manage to secretly build warships more advanced than ours? Victoria confirmed his words. It's true, she said. Council member Diana Stone, representing the Empire's scientific community, leaned forward. Just how far ahead are they, Admiral? Victoria activated her display. Their technology is significantly superior. Their power systems generate 10 times more energy than ours. Their propulsion drives reach speeds we thought impossible. Their weapons use principles we're still studying. In a direct battle, one human battleship could take on 3 of our dreadnoughts, and possibly win. The chamber erupted in disbelief. Council member Paul Torres, the Empire's military chief, slammed his fist on the table. Unacceptable. Humanity deceived us, built weapons in secret, and now they demand equality? We should send the fleet and crush them before this threat grows. Victoria stayed calm. That would be a disaster. Humanity has 12 of these battleships. Yes, the Empire would eventually win, but at an enormous cost. And attacking a species offering peace would destroy our moral standing. Torres scoffed. Moral standing? They lied to us! Council member Elena Harris spoke quietly. They had no choice. The room went silent. She continued. Let's be honest about what the Empire has done. We've conquered dozens of species, taken their resources and used them as labor. Humanity saw that and decided they wouldn't become another victim. Can we really blame them for that? Chairman Pierce raised his hand. Enough. This debate isn't about philosophy. We must decide what happens next. He turned to Victoria. You've spoken with them directly. What do you believe are their intentions? Victoria chose her words carefully. Captain Mitchell made it clear. They want independence and equality, not war. They're offering trade and technology sharing. I believe their offer is genuine. Torres frowned. And what's to stop them from building more ships and eventually challenging the Empire's rule? Nothing, Victoria admitted. But that risk exists no matter what we do. If we attack, we create an enemy that's clever and determined. If we negotiate, we gain an ally, and access to technology that could help the entire Empire. Diana Stone nodded thoughtfully. What kind of technology exactly? Victoria smiled faintly. The kind that could change everything. Victoria opened the file containing humanity's proposal. It detailed what Earth was offering: advanced power generation systems, improved medical technologies, and agricultural methods that could boost food production across countless Imperial worlds. They were keeping their weapons and propulsion secrets to themselves, but even so, their offer was impressive. Elena spoke first. They're smart, she said. They're offering us something valuable but keeping their military technology hidden. Chairman Pierce nodded. Smart, yes, and dangerous. If we accept this treaty, we're admitting that a species can rise up to challenge the Empire through secrecy and strategic buildup. What kind of message does that send to the other species under our control? Elena replied calmly. Maybe it sends a better message that the Empire can evolve, that we're wise enough to recognize strength and reward cooperation instead of crushing it. Torres immediately pushed back. No, it sends a message of weakness. It tells every subject world that the way to earn freedom is to build secret weapons and threaten us. The debate continued for hours. Voices rose and fell as the council members clashed over what to do. Victoria listened carefully, understanding each side. Torres' fear made sense. He saw danger everywhere. Diana's questions were practical, grounded in logic. Elena's arguments came from belief in progress. Every position had merit, and Victoria knew that whatever they decided today would shape galactic politics for generations. Finally, Chairman Pierce called for silence. We've debated long enough, he said. It's time to vote. The proposal on the table was simple. Accept Earth's terms and begin negotiations on a formal treaty recognizing their independence and military freedom. Who's in favor? Pierce asked. Elena raised her hand immediately. After a brief pause, Diana Stone followed. 2 more council members joined them. Who opposes? Torres's hand shot up without hesitation, followed by 1 other member. All eyes turned to Pierce. His vote would decide everything. The chamber fell completely silent. Pierce leaned back, his hands pressed together as he thought. I've led this council for 20 years, he began. I've watched the Empire grow, bringing new worlds under our rule. I've always believed in our superiority, in the greatness of Imperial civilization. But I'm not blind. We have our flaws, and I'm not foolish enough to ignore what I see before me. He looked up at the hologram of the UNS Defiance, slowly rotating above the table. Humanity has proven something remarkable. They took the basic technology we shared with them and turned it into something that rivals our best work. They did it not through conquest, but through intelligence, discipline, and willpower. Maybe that's worth more than control. Then slowly Pierce raised his hand. I vote in favor of the treaty. The decision was made. The Galactic Empire would begin formal negotiations with Earth. Pierce turned to Victoria. You'll go to Sentinel Prime and deliver our acceptance to Captain Mitchell personally. You'll lead the Imperial delegation and make sure the final agreement protects our interest while acknowledging Earth's independence. I trust you to get this right. Victoria stood at attention and saluted. Yes, Chairman. I won't fail the Empire. As she left the council chamber, Victoria felt the full weight of history pressing down on her. The choice had been made, and it would reshape the balance of power across the galaxy. Yet beneath the pressure, she felt something unexpected: hope. Maybe humanity's rise wasn't a threat. Maybe it was the wake-up call the Empire needed. A reminder that real strength wasn't just about power, but the ability to adapt and evolve. She just hoped she was right. Aboard the UNS Defiance, Captain Ryan Mitchell received the message. The Imperial Council had voted to accept negotiations. The bridge erupted in quiet cheers. They had done it. Against all odds, humanity had convinced the most powerful empire in the galaxy to talk peace. Ryan smiled but remained grounded. This is just the first step, he reminded his crew. The treaty still has to be written, debated, and signed. There will be arguments and compromises, But the hardest part is over. The Empire chose diplomacy over war. As the celebration died down, Ryan looked around the bridge. They had proven that humanity deserved a seat among the stars. Now they had to prove they were worthy of keeping it. The next few weeks would determine the future of human-imperial relations for generations. He was ready for it. Humanity hadn't come this far just to fall short. Above Sentinel Prime, the Imperial Third Fleet waited in formation, 30 warships including 5 massive dreadnoughts, forming a wall of steel and energy. From the bridge of her flagship, the carrier Victorious, Admiral Victoria Caney watched the UNS Defiance grow larger on the main screen as it approached. General Marcus Webb stood beside her, reporting updates. "All ships report ready," he said. "Weapons online, shields at full power. We're standing by for your command." Victoria didn't answer immediately. She kept her eyes fixed on the screen. Even after reviewing the data, seeing the Defiance with her own eyes left her speechless. The human battleship was enormous, bigger than anything the Empire had ever built. Her dreadnoughts looked like patrol ships beside it. "Transmission incoming," her communications officer reported. Victoria straightened in her command chair. "Put it through." The screen flickered and a human appeared. Captain Ryan Mitchell stood on his bridge, composed and confident. His uniform was sharp, his bearing unmistakably military. Behind him, his crew worked efficiently at consoles far more advanced than the Empire believed Earth capable of producing. "This is Captain Ryan Mitchell of the United Nations Starship Defiance," he began. "I speak on behalf of humanity to address the Galactic Empire." Victoria leaned forward. "I'm Admiral Victoria Kane, Supreme Commander of Imperial Defense Forces. Your presence here has caused considerable alarm. Perhaps you'd like to explain how a planet we last surveyed as barely interplanetary has produced a vessel of this size and power." Ryan's expression remained calm, though Victoria thought she saw a trace of pride in his eyes. "Because, Admiral, the Empire has been operating under a false assumption. You saw what we wanted you to see." "So," Victoria said flatly, "you deceived us." "No," Ryan replied evenly. "We protected ourselves. When your ships first arrived at Earth a century ago, we learned quickly how the Empire treats species it deems primitive, second-class citizens, laborers, resources. So we made a choice. We let you see what you expected while we built what we needed to survive." From one of the side stations, Dr. Ross spoke up. "The Defiance took decades to build." Ryan nodded. "She's the first of 12. The rest were constructed in the Kuiper Belt, far beyond your survey range. Your intelligence reports are correct. Our civilian ships still use fusion drives, but our military operates on an entirely different level." General Webb repeated the words under his breath, stunned. 12 battleships? His face went pale. "That's an entire fleet." Ryan's tone stayed firm. "They're a deterrent, General. We didn't build them to start a war. We built them to make sure we'd never be victims again. I'm here to negotiate a new relationship between humanity and the Empire, one based on mutual respect, not submission." Victoria felt a knot tighten in her chest. Every instinct told her to treat this as a threat, yet something about Ryan's tone, steady, honest, determined, made her hesitate. "Captain," she said carefully, "you've placed the Empire in a very difficult position. We can't just ignore a fleet of unknown, heavily armed warships." Ryan didn't flinch. "You could have ignored us, Admiral. We could have stayed hidden until we had 50 ships, maybe 100. But we didn't. We came forward now because we believe peace is still possible. You have a choice. Treat this as a declaration of war and pay a terrible cost, or recognize that humanity has earned the right to stand as equals." Silence filled the bridge. Every Imperial officer waited for Victoria's response. She looked at Ryan's image on the screen and realized this moment would define not just their future, but the future of the entire galaxy. "You've made your point, Captain," she said at last. "What happens next?" Ryan gave a small, calm smile. "I'm authorized to propose a formal treaty. Full independence for Earth, recognition as an equal power, and cooperation in trade and defense. In return, we'll share select technologies that benefit both sides." Dr. Ross blinked in surprise. "You're offering technology?" Ryan nodded. "Yes, but only what we choose to share. We're not naive. Still, the galaxy is dangerous. There are threats out there that neither of us can handle alone. We'd rather be allies than enemies. Victoria leaned back, thinking it through. He was right. Even if they destroyed the Defiance, there were 11 more hidden somewhere. And if humanity truly wanted war, they wouldn't be standing here offering peace. She finally said, "I don't have the authority to sign a treaty this important. That decision rests with the Imperial Council." Ryan nodded. "Understood. The Defiance will remain here with weapons powered down, as a sign of good faith. We're prepared to wait while you speak with your government. I hope you'll recommend acceptance. The alternative helps no one." Victoria took a deep breath. "I'll deliver your message, Captain. But you must understand, our empire isn't used to surprises. Even if I support your proposal, there will be resistance." Ryan's tone was calm but firm. "I'm counting on you, Admiral. Humanity doesn't want war, but we'll never again accept being treated as lesser. That's a line we'll never cross." The transmission ended. The image of Ryan disappeared, replaced once again by the massive, silent form of the UNS Defiance floating in space. Victoria stared at it for a long moment. Then she turned to her staff. "Get me a secure channel to the Imperial Council. And I want a full report on Earth's military history. I have a feeling we're about to learn a lot." As her officers moved quickly to carry out her orders, Victoria stood quietly, watching the Defiance through the viewport. The galaxy had just changed, completely and forever. The only question now was whether the Empire would be wise enough to embrace that change, or foolish enough to fight it. Admiral Victoria Kane stood in the war room of Imperial High Command, her hands clasped behind her back as she stared at the hologram floating in front of her. The image showed the massive ship called the UNS Defiance, and it looked so real, so impossible, that even she had to remind herself it wasn't a nightmare. She turned toward the group of senior officers gathered around her, military commanders, scientists, and intelligence chiefs, and demanded that someone explain how a species the Empire had long labeled as primitive could have built something like this. No one had an answer. The room full of experts, people who were supposed to know everything, suddenly looked like students caught unprepared for an exam. On one of the large screens, Commander Jake Morrison appeared from the Sentinel Prime station. His voice was tense as he said they had checked and double-checked everything. This was no trick or sensor error. The Defiance was real, and it was unlike anything they had ever seen before. Victoria asked for a full analysis of the ship's capabilities. Jake brought up the data and explained that the vessel was traveling at 47 times light speed, with no sign of engine strain. Its power readings showed a type of reactor they couldn't even identify, and the energy output was more than 10 times greater than anything the Empire currently possessed. Victoria's voice stayed calm but sharp as she asked about its weapons. Jake hesitated before answering. The ship had what appeared to be railguns and missile systems, along with several unknown weapon types. Then with a grim look, he added that the ship wasn't broadcasting any identification codes, no diplomatic signals, nothing. It was moving straight toward Imperial territory, completely silent. Dr. Helen Ross, the Empire's chief expert on alien technologies, stepped forward. She said she had reviewed every piece of intelligence about Earth. Just 3 months ago, humans were exactly where the Empire thought they were, technologically backward and limited to simple fusion systems. This level of advancement should have taken them centuries to achieve. "It's not possible," she said quietly. Victoria looked at her and replied coldly, "And yet here it is." The silence that followed was heavy. General Marcus Webb, who commanded the Imperial Third Fleet, cleared his throat and said they should mobilize immediately. Whatever this was, it could be a threat. Victoria agreed but ordered that they gather as much information as possible first. She turned back to Commander Morrison and asked if the Defiance had tried to communicate. Jake said no. They'd sent messages on every frequency, including the old diplomatic channels set up during humanity's first contact with the Empire. There was no reply. Victoria then looked to her intelligence chief, Nathan Brooks, and asked for the latest political report on Earth. Nathan scrolled through his tablet and said the United Nations of Earth was still the ruling government, dealing mostly with internal disputes over Mars colony resources. Nothing in the report suggested they were preparing for war or building massive battleships. Another officer asked if maybe it was a rogue faction acting alone. Nathan shook his head. A ship that size required the full industrial capacity of a planet. You can't hide that kind of project, he said. Dr. Ross added softly, unless they weren't hiding it. Unless they built it right in front of us and we never noticed. Victoria frowned. Are you suggesting our intelligence was compromised? Helen replied, Not exactly compromised, Admiral, just blind. We saw what we expected to see. Primitive humans barely capable of space travel. We never imagined they might be showing us what they wanted us to see. The room erupted in quiet whispers as the truth began to sink in. If Earth had been deceiving them for decades, then what else could they be hiding? And why reveal this now? Before anyone could answer, Jake's voice cut through the noise. Admiral, the Defiance has passed the outer marker. At its current speed, it will reach Sentinel Prime in 4 hours. Victoria didn't hesitate. She ordered General Webb to have the Third Fleet in position within 3 hours. She told Commander Morrison to evacuate all non-essential personnel from the station and instructed Dr. Ross to prepare a full analysis of human military strategy. If we're going to face them, she said, I want to know what we're up against. As the room came alive with activity, Victoria turned back toward the hologram. The Defiance hung there silent and enormous, a steel challenge to everything the Empire believed about its superiority. She stared at it and whispered under her breath, What are you, and what do you want? The ship, of course, gave no answer. It just kept coming, quiet and unstoppable, like a predator finally revealing itself to its prey. Meanwhile, aboard the UNS Defiance, Captain Ryan Mitchell stood on his bridge, calmly watching the tactical display. Everything was unfolding exactly as predicted. The Empire was reacting with confusion and fear. His crew moved efficiently around him, professionals who had trained for this day all their lives. His tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Amy Lawson, reported that the Empire was mobilizing its Third Fleet. Ryan nodded, satisfied. Good, he said quietly. Let them mobilize. Let them wonder. The communications officer reported they'd reach optimal broadcast range in 2 hours. Ryan ordered the ship to maintain radio silence until then. He wanted the Empire's full attention when they finally spoke. He turned toward the viewport, looking out at the stars rushing past. Humanity had once believed it would take thousands of years to reach this point. But the Empire's arrogance had given them the motivation to evolve faster than anyone imagined. When the Empire first came to Earth 100 years ago, humanity had barely left its home planet. The aliens offered membership in their galactic civilization, but only as laborers and miners, not equals. Humanity accepted publicly, but in secret they made a vow never to be subservient. They studied every piece of technology the Empire gave them, then improved it. They built colonies on Mars and in the asteroid belt, just as the Empire expected. But far beyond their view in the dark of the Kuiper Belt, they built something else. They built freedom. The Defiance was the result. One of 12 massive warships, each representing decades of hidden effort and sacrifice. Thousands of scientists and engineers had dedicated their lives to this mission. Every part of the project had been hidden behind civilian fronts, secret transports, and quiet resource shifts. And through it all, humanity had smiled and played the part of the obedient student while secretly building the means to stand on their own. Ryan looked back at his tactical screen. The Imperial Third Fleet was now forming around Sentinel Prime, 30 warships, including 5 dreadnoughts. Under normal circumstances, it would be an intimidating sight. But the Defiance could take on half that force alone, and there were 11 more ships like her waiting back home. The balance of power in the galaxy was about to change forever. Humanity's time of being underestimated was over. On Sentinel Prime, Commander Jake Morrison sat tensely in his command chair, his fingers tapping against the armrest as he stared at the strange readings on his screen. 20 years of experience told him something was very wrong. His communications officer, Lieutenant Emma Clark, called out that she was detecting something strange at the edge of the Kepler expanse. Jake walked over to her console, his boots echoing in the metallic silence of the station. Emma expanded the readings, and what appeared made Jake's blood run cold. The object was massive, far larger than any Imperial ship. But it wasn't its size that frightened him. It was the energy pattern. That's not Imperial tech, he said quietly. Emma looked up with wide eyes and agreed. It's nothing we've ever seen before. And it's coming from the direction of Earth. At that, everyone on the bridge froze. Earth, humanity's homeworld. The same species the Empire had brought into its fold a century ago, believing them weak and primitive. Back then, humans had barely mastered spaceflight, relying on chemical rockets. Out of pity, the Empire had gifted them basic fusion drives, like handing a child training wheels. Jake tried to convince himself it might be natural, but he knew better. Emma shook her head. The readings were too stable, too controlled. Whatever it is, it's artificial, she said. And it's moving toward Imperial space at 47 times light speed. Jake felt a chill run through him. The Empire's best ships could only reach 3 light speed. That's impossible, he muttered, but Emma replied softly, I've checked twice, sir. The readings are correct. Jake returned to his chair, his mind racing. He leaned forward and said, Get me a visual. Whatever this thing was, he needed to see it for himself. The command center of Sentinel Prime was tense. Every officer moved with quiet urgency as data streamed across their screens. Captain Jake stood at the center, eyes locked on the main display. The sensors had picked up something massive on the edge of their detection range, something that shouldn't be there. He ordered the visual feed to be brought up, needing to see for himself what they were dealing with. When the image appeared, Jake's breath caught in his chest. Even through the distortion of distance and interference, the shape was unmistakable. A ship. But calling it a ship didn't seem right. This thing was enormous, far beyond anything the Empire had ever built. It filled the entire screen, its surface covered in sharp, angular armor that gleamed with light. Rows upon rows of weapon mounts lined its hull, each one large enough to destroy an entire cruiser. Energy pulses ran along its spine, glowing faintly blue, visible even from this range. Jake's voice was barely above a whisper when he asked for an estimate of its size. His officer, Emma, ran the scans, her hands moving quickly across the console. A moment later, she reported in a quiet, shaken tone that the reading suggested it was roughly 12 kilometers long. For a second, the entire bridge went silent. The Empire's largest warship barely reached 3 kilometers. This thing was 4 times that size, a monster in every sense. Jake felt a chill down his back as he asked for any record of a design like this. Could it belong to another species? Maybe a new enemy? Emma's fingers hesitated over her console before she answered. Her face had gone pale. She said she was picking up something unusual, markings on the hull. She began enhancing the image, bringing it into focus. Slowly, the symbols became clearer until everyone on the bridge could read them. They were letters, human letters. And right beneath them was a name that sent a wave of disbelief through the room. Ewan's Defiance heavy battleship. Jake froze. That was impossible. A human ship of that size? That kind of power? He demanded to know when their last report from Earth had come in. Emma swallowed hard before replying. 3 months ago, sir. Routine survey. Earth's colonies were still using standard fusion drives. No sign of advanced weaponry or large-scale military construction. Jake stared at the image again. If Earth was still barely capable of interplanetary travel, where had this monster come from? No one had an answer. The only sounds on the bridge were the faint hum of systems and the soft blips from the consoles. Jake's grip tightened on the armrest of his chair. That name, Defiance, felt like a message, a challenge. Then Emma's voice broke the silence. Captain, the vessel is changing course. It's heading straight toward us. Jake's eyes widened. Battle stations, he barked. Alarms began echoing throughout the station as red lights flashed overhead. Get me a direct channel to Imperial High Command now. As the crew scrambled to prepare, Jake couldn't shake one terrible thought from his mind. If humanity could build something like this in secret, what else had they been hiding all these years? Out in the void, the UNS Defiance moved through space like a silent predator. Its massive engines burned with steady power, pushing the ship forward at speeds that no Imperial vessel could match. On its bridge stood Captain Ryan Mitchell, calm and focused. Around him, his crew worked with quiet precision. Every man and woman on board knew what this moment meant. For a century, humanity had lived under the Empire's rule. When the Empire's fleets first appeared over Earth 100 years ago, humanity had been powerless. No real fleet, no weapons that could match the Empire's technology. The Empire had given them a choice, submit or die. Humanity chose to submit, but they had never truly surrendered. While the Empire saw them as weak, humans watched, learned, and adapted. They studied every piece of alien technology the Empire allowed them to see. They found weaknesses, gaps, and limits. And then they quietly went to work. Hidden deep beneath the surface of the Moon, Mars, and Earth's oceans, humanity began building the weapons and ships that the Empire said were impossible. The Defiance was the result, the first of its kind. It was more than just a warship. It was proof that humanity had outgrown the role of servants and was ready to stand as equals, or conquerors if necessary. Ryan watched the tactical display, showing Sentinel Prime ahead. The Empire's ships were beginning to move, forming defensive lines around the station. "They're scared," his tactical officer said. Ryan smiled faintly. "Good, let them be." He didn't order weapons to power up. Not yet. He wanted them to see the Defiance coming. Wanted the Empire to know exactly what they were facing before a single shot was fired. He ordered full communication silence. No transmissions, no signals. Just the silent approach of a ship that should not exist. The bridge buzzed quietly with activity. Engineers monitored the ship's heart, a power core so advanced it could run an entire colony by itself. Weapons officers checked the massive railguns, their projectiles capable of tearing through Imperial shields like they were made of glass. Missile pods, each one the size of a fighter craft, stood ready. Navigation plotted a path directly toward the Imperial station, using systems that twisted gravity in ways the Empire still called theoretical. Ryan's eyes stayed fixed on the view ahead, the Imperial ships growing larger on the main screen. He thought about Earth, about how far they had come. He remembered the old days, when the Empire's soldiers walked the streets of human cities, treating them like children. He remembered the anger that had united the people of Earth, Mars, and the colonies. Humanity had bided its time, hidden its strength, and waited for the right moment to reveal its hand. That moment had finally arrived. He turned to his crew. 2 hours until we reach communication range, he said calmly. Prepare all systems. They didn't need to ask what would happen next. When the Defiance opened communications, the entire galaxy would learn the truth. For 100 years, humanity had played the part of obedient subjects. For 100 years, they had been underestimated, ignored, and dismissed. Now, with one ship, their ship, they would show the galaxy exactly who they were. Ryan stood tall, his expression steady, but his eyes cold with purpose. The Empire wanted servants, he said quietly. They're about to meet the species that never stays on its knees. Outside, the Defiance glided forward through the endless dark, its engines glowing brighter as it closed the distance to Sentinel Prime. In 2 hours, the balance of power in the galaxy would change forever.